Mine's right on my computer. That's how I can't miss it.
All right. Okay. So I got the recording going on. I will share my screen. I think I need to get another screen because when we're doing the call, there's so many windows that are open. I need to have chat. And then I'll also have to watch the time. Make sure we don't go over.
Well, we have 2 minutes.
Oh, let me. Yeah.
You know, when you're sharing your screen, I cannot get any of my the lower bar where the chat and all.
Oh, it goes on top. Do you see that? It goes. You should have a green thing. It says your. Do you see that on the top? Because yeah, mine goes on top.
No, it popped up on the bottom and then it's back again.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to do anything, you gotta hover over it and then start doing it. Okay. So let's get started. It's right about time. Hello, everyone. Good evening to the other side of the world, to our friends in Ghana, our friends in Kampala. Let's see, our friend in Toronto. Mid-morning to you. Thank you so much again for joining us. This is another exciting day with all of you. As you've probably seen on the WhatsApp group, the organization, the Global Teams Foundation has proposed that we continue the program into next week. So there is some discussion going on about timing and so forth on the WhatsApp. If you haven't seen it, please respond to the message in there. We want to see if the timing and next week, same thing, Monday through Friday will work. So I've selected a few quotes as our opening quotes from the Bible. It's about the power that exists within us that comes through our character traits. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. For the kingdom of God is not in word, but in power. For our gospel came not unto you in word only, but also in power, and in the Holy Ghost, and in as much assurance, as ye know of what manner of men were among you for your sake. So I think the reason that we put this character development into the program is because of this, because often we don't really give enough credit to the power of our characteristics. One of the things we do in our classes when we work with children, as they are selecting their character traits, whether they're strong or they need work, and on their muscle man, what they're doing, is we talk to them about if a person is clean, is that person strong or is it weak? If a person is patient, is that person strong or weak? And that is the correlation also between character traits and the muscle man. Every time we develop any of our character traits further, we are becoming a stronger person. Physically, we need to exercise. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we need to actually do something. We can't just say, I'm a patient person, I'm a generous person. We have to do something. All right, so today's facilitator is going to be Ms. Barry Owens. She's going to lead us into the program with, we'll start as usual with what we learned yesterday, what we have shared. Barry, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon, evening to all. I just need to give you a heads up that for whatever reason, I'm having internet is unstable. So if I get frozen, Alex, would you please just go ahead and step right in?
All right.
All right, so to review, yesterday we talked about patience. So have you shared what you have learned with anyone? And if so, we'd like to know who and what was their response. And if you would enter that into chat, that would be absolutely perfect. Okay. So Alex, if you could kind of keep an eye on that for me.
Yep, I'm typing it in the chat. Go ahead.
All right. So and then we also saw the video with the panda that was showing. Well, I should back up a minute. The caretaker who was showing a lot of patience and with the panda, and also continuing to do the work that he was to do. And then we could say the panda showed character trait too. In this case, as Alex is saying, don't know if it's a good aspect of good side of it or not so good side of it, but that panda was definitely being persistent, which I know in many cases it's a character trait that is necessary for us to accomplish things that we're off to accomplish in life. Okay, so unless there's any questions about what was covered yesterday, we'll go ahead and move on to responsibility, which Alex had assigned, made some assignments. You're going to open that up for me, Alex?
Yep, I'm going there.
All right, so we talked about, we talked about chores with children and chores being responsibilities, and that also as adults, there are responsibilities as well. You might notice that I added one here because I thought it was it's kind of a not really serious kind of a chore or responsibility, but was one that would apply not only to adults, those who are bathing their kids, or to young people themselves, and being responsible for taking baths or showering and or taking care of kids in that regard. So then if you could lower it down, Alex, the second part of the assignment was to take these activities and break them down in regard to what the various elements are in fulfilling that responsibility. And if you see, I've added down there the bathing of kids. And this, again, is kind of a maybe even a silly example, but it then makes it, for me, easier to see what it is that we're talking about. That when you take on a responsibility, it's just not what that it appears to be on the surface. You really need to look underneath and see what is it that I'm really saying I'm going to be responsible for. So like with this example with bathing kids, it's also, the components of it are filling the tub, and you need to have shampoo and soap, and with kids, you're going to have toys and towels and clean clothes. And then after the fact, there's additional responsibilities, elements to the responsibilities in terms of taking care of the dirty clothes and the towels and draining and cleaning the tub. This is, I think, a good place for us to actually bring up a point that we very much like to make, which has to do with chores and with allowance and with children. So we say that children should not be, their allowance should not be based on chores. And why we say that is that we're out to have responsible citizens, and that as a responsible citizen, you will want to take your share in terms of daily life, I guess you could say. So if your children are in your home and in living in the home, they should have responsibilities in sharing what it takes to maintain that home, so that at some point they're going to be on their own, and they won't have someone else to do the chores for them, and they certainly won't be paid by anyone for doing those chores. Did you want to add something to this at this point, Alex?
Sure. So yeah, let's talk about, and that's something, the question that we can pose. There are two questions. One is given, all right, there's some people that are asking to turn up the volume. Our volume is up. Everybody else's can hear okay. Emmanuel, there's something wrong with your device. It is not us. I think everybody else can hear okay. So as far as chores and allowance, so let's pose a question in here. Is giving allowance or pocket money customary in your country? We know we have different people, so let's have that in there in the chat, and then we'll start with that. Is it customary to give children, or if you have children, do you give them pocket money? And then, so that's a question that's being posted in there. And then also the second question would be that should children be paid to do their home activities? All right, so, okay, I'm just trying to see what's happening in there. In some households, particularly, we have seen in our classes, we have seen different ways. Some parents just don't feel like their children should have any responsibility. And part of that is because as a child themselves, they have too much responsibility. They want their children to just not do anything. But then we've seen that that's not conducive to our society, and I'll make an example from it. What our recommendation is that children should receive allowance from young age, probably like around 5 or 6 or so. The amount is really dependent on the financial situation of the family and also maturity of the child. And also, it should not be, it doesn't have to be money. It can be, some parents give points or give little stickers to their children, just so they learn that they need to manage not only their time from the young age, but also do from young age, but also be able to manage their money, manage their desires. So I want everyone to think about, when most of the group here are adults. When we were growing up, were we exposed to all these material stuff? No, we didn't have. I know in my case, I'm 52, 53 years old, and we didn't have, I mean, when we would go to a supermarket to buy food, that's the only thing we went to buy, and it was a small store. It wasn't something that you would walk into this huge store that has everything, and you're constantly being tempted. So now these days, when we go to a store, and I think that's becoming universal, to buy life necessities, bread, rice, milk, our children are exposed to toys because the stores want to sell. So for them to understand that we need to be able to control these desires is very important. And then, as Barry was mentioning, it is very important for everyone to understand that we have responsibilities, we have chores. I'll give an example. There was one time a 11-year-old, her name was Olivia, and when we did discuss this exercise, she said she has no responsibility. And we asked, who washes the dishes? My mom. Who washes the clothing? My father. Who washes this? So everybody else was doing something. And then we asked Olivia, so are you going to stay with your parents and your siblings for the rest of your life? She said, no, I am going to have my own place when I go to university. And then we asked, so who's going to do all of these work for you? Who's going to wash your dishes, wash your clothes, and so forth? And she said, my maids and butlers. And the interesting thing was that, so who's paying for your maids and butlers? Her response was, well, my aunt and uncle, they are going to pay, not even the parents' aunt and uncle. And I said, have they told you? Do you have that in writing that they will pay for it? She said, no, but they will. I said, okay, so your homework for tomorrow is to ask your aunt and uncle to make sure that they are going to pay. So the following week, when Olivia came back, head down, I asked, are your aunt and uncle are going to pay for your maid and butler? She said, no. And I said, what are you going to do? She said, I started washing dishes last night. So sometimes it's that simple to get that, get them going. And our belief is that chores should not be tied into um, allowance. So in the chat is very quiet today. Jade is keep asking, can we have anything? So maybe we'll move on. Maybe there are not that many people with children, but we'll move on. So Barry, let's move on to
Yeah, the activity 3 in regard to
yes, yeah, let's
responsibilities to others. But Alex, I wanted to bring up a point here. Emmanuel is saying that he has put his volume up as much as he can, but he can barely hear. I'm assuming he's talking about me. And I'm concerned that there may be that my speaker is not strong enough. It is turned all the way up.
No, you're okay. I can hear you okay. Irma, you can hear her okay? Yep, yep. So yeah, it's good. No, we can hear you okay. I think
Okay.
sometimes locally things don't something happens in local devices.
All right, I will continue on then.
All right.
So in as far as responsibility is concerned, it's not only being responsible for ourselves and having responsibilities in our family, but it's also responsibilities in our community. And yesterday, Alex did share an example from the family that we worked with in London. And their challenge that they identified was that their neighborhood was dirty, and that their solution was that that they would be in communication with the to resolve that. So if we could, in the chat, anyone else come up with any challenges that you identified and what's the solution that you could see?
All right, let's see if anybody, it might be, we're getting toward the end of the week. It's late at night. Okay, so Emmanuel is okay now. He can hear. We're good. All right. So let's talk about while we're waiting for people to put some challenges in here. Maybe we can ask our staff.
Actually, what I thought I'd do, Alex, is there are some things that have come up in the chat in regard to allowance.
Oh.
So one question is giving allowance for pocket money custom in your, oh no, that was your question.
That's from Jay, yeah.
Okay, and.
All right.
Oh, so those are all questions coming from here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we do have one. So we do have one suggestion: stench in the gutter on the street. That is. I'll put that in here. Let's see what other.
Okay.
So usually the question that I like to ask for this exercise, especially from young students, is that are we even responsible? Should we feel responsible for people or things that don't concern us? I mean, maybe a dirty neighborhood, it concerns us, but then well-being of others, should we be concerned with it or no? As long as we have our comfortable life, and so that's something that brings us into this, and we'll go back to the exercise that we did yesterday. All right. So there are a couple of other suggestions here. Bushy neighborhood. Yes, we are recording today, so we did remember to record. Thank you, Solomon. Transport to city solutions. All right. Okay, so a few things are coming, and I'll copy and paste them here there if you want to continue the conversation.
Okay, great. So the different challenges that I see have come up here in the chat are transport to city, and the solution is group transport. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Probably mass transit, maybe like bus system or metro or things like that.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you. And then one
This is a good one. I'm copying that.
Yeah, use them in my community and very, oh, and then there's an alcohol difficulty with that. And I didn't, thank you for sharing that, Isaac, and I don't see that there's, that you came up with any possible solution for that, because we're also interested in what those possible solutions might be. And I think as we've seen is that many times those solutions that come about when there's other people that you get into the conversation about what the difficulty is. So I see also here street children, bushy neighborhood. I'm assuming that that refers to the landscape, that there's trees and bushes that are not being trimmed.
Yeah, probably brushes and stuff. Okay. So the next question that we can pose is, has anyone started talking at least to the neighborhood? We know that there are a lot of challenges throughout the world. Some of them are too big for us to start or to start to tackle, but then some of them we can in our neighborhood. So has anyone, that's the next question, has anyone started actually doing something about these challenges, or we just see the challenge and we go on about our daily life? All right. So there are a few things that are coming in.
Good.
Okay.
There's definitely a delay here. You're seeing them before I am because I don't see anything at this point.
So yeah, so one solution is from Timothy. I can't remember what it was for, but it says solution to the problem is to draw the neighbor's attention to the problem to work together to overcome. And that is definitely something that we need to do more. And I think probably in the other parts of the world, neighbors are more open to get together and do things as opposed to here in US. I know in our community, we hardly even know our neighbors. And I'm at fault too. We don't necessarily make a point. When our children were growing up, when they were young, it was easier to be in touch with the neighbors that had same age children. But now that they have grown, we have lost very much contact. We may see each other and just wave hands, but hardly ever talk or get together and talk about any challenges. All right, so there's other things that are being shared. Noise from neighbors' children. In my country, a major challenge is that people like things. Can you elaborate on that? Because that, I think, might be leading us into tomorrow's lesson. So what do you mean by, in my country, major challenges, people like things? We have busy environment. Can solution be organizing communal layouts to clear the environment? Yes, that's a perfect solution. And one thing that we can always add in there, and often we forget, I know especially in our society here, and I like to bring back the spiritual aspects. Often we try to address the challenges just by getting together or maybe pouring a lot of money. Here in our city, in San Diego, there are many organizations that are trying to alleviate many of the problems, being people that are homeless, people that don't have jobs, people that are being released from prison, and to make sure they don't go back. But then everything has become, from what I can see from the organization, most of the organizations that we've been involved with, is that it's just about money. Let's give this organization some money to feed the homeless, or to just provide housing for those who are released from the prison and don't have a place. There is not much education going into that process and really connecting individuals with their spiritual origin, with our spiritual foundation. And that's one of the reasons that, I mean, when we started Mind Treasures, when my wife and I started Mind Treasures, we didn't intend to have this much connection with spiritual aspects of life. But over time, we see that that is absolutely needed. Let's see. So there are a few things in here. Let me go back. All right. So one solution I think for children is to approach their parents and ask them to discipline their children. Uh, I think what we have seen is that sometimes parents are too busy, or parents even they need discipline themselves. Uh, so education of all that, but getting together is probably a great thing. Uh, Busy environment can solution be organizing. Okay, community. We read that. We intend to organize, this is from Isaac, we intend to organize a program to educate the youth on the need to be respectful and the consequences of constant alcohol intake. That's great. Uh, but Maxwell says by educating people on the street to keep their surrounding clean. All right, so the question about people liking things, what I mean is that people don't want to accept responsibility for themselves. I think that is true everywhere. A lot of times people they just love to blame other people for their actions, and they take actions immediately and not do anything. I think we had one case recently here in the US where someone felt threatened just because a person was of a different color skin. Fortunately, she did take responsibility for it, but at the beginning she blamed the other person for what she was doing wrong. She was walking her dog without a leash, which in that area is required. So it is very easy for us to blame other people.
I think it's kind of a human trait, right? To point the finger somewhere else and not be responsible. And that's really what the value of this particular lesson is for us to be responsible. And not only for ourselves, like the woman with the, our dog not on a leash, and for our families, but also for our communities and for different people, community means different things. I mean, some people are working on a global level at this point. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so you can see that there's no shortages of challenges, and there's also what I'm seeing very clearly is that there's no shortages of solutions. And so our challenge to not the kind of challenge you're talking about here, but what we're challenge you all with is to look to see what is it in your community that could use a leader. That's probably what's missing to start the conversations and having solutions to what's not working. All right. Anything else you want to add to responsibility today, Alex?
That I think we overkilled that one. I want to go back and to uh, one of the scriptures that we read that's kind of goes along with here. Often, so let me ask you this before I read this in the chat. Who thinks they have enough time to not only take care of their family, their personal life, feed the family, feed themselves, but also tackle or address some of these challenges? Or are we just too busy just trying to maintain our livelihood? So let's have a response on that in the chat. Who thinks you have enough time, or you can sacrifice, or you can give away some of the things that you do in order to start thinking about others, some of the challenges that we were thinking about, we were talking about it here. And then I want to pull up. So while we're waiting for that response, I'd like to pull this up. Chris, okay, that's from Jade. All right. So this is one of the okay. All right. So I guess there is heavy rain in Accra today. That's making the internet unstable. Let's see. What I think that division of labor to a great extent will help. Okay. All right. So I wanted to reread this one where it says this last one here, number 22. Beseech ye the one true God to grant that ye may taste the savor of such deeds as are performed in his path, and partake of the sweetness of such humility and submissiveness as are shown forth for his sake. Forget your own selves and turn your eyes toward your neighbor. Bend your energies to whatever may foster the education of men. Nothing is or can ever be hidden from God. If ye follow in his way, His incalculable and imperishable blessings will be showered upon you. And from personal experience, and other members can share too, I have truly experienced this. Again, when we started Mind Treasures, it was just for our boys and in their school. And now look, we are doing an international program on the internet, bringing everyone together. And on the other side, I have totally a lot of things that are happening with the program, and our staff know here. What we have been able to accomplish is definitely beyond my power. I know it's definitely beyond my power. Things happen, things fall into place. The reason that I want to share something, the reason that most of the people that have been able to contact us is because we get to advertise for free through Google. We don't even pay for our advertising. Uh, but then it has taken, I have given up going on Facebook or Instagram. I mean, I do go there maybe a couple of minutes every day just to see what's happening. Or we do watch TV, but mostly it's like when I am chatting with our friends across the world. Uh, that is something that I think, so we have Felicia put in here, I have time for charity work. I do that normally after work. But then as we can see, a lot of people are not doing that, especially during this pandemic. I know a lot of people are just playing games at home. They're not really utilizing their time. So that's another piece of education that we need to teach our children and also people around us. Our children are so, it's so easy for them to just grab a laptop, a computer, or a phone these days. I don't think they do. They just love to stay on the phone and just keep on playing without any purpose, without any gain, or and they're just wasting their time. So that's going to be another thing that we really need to work on. All right. Let's go back. I want to go back to any question on the responsibility. I think we overkilled this one. Again, please watch the video. Let's see who actually watched the video, and maybe we should watch the video.
Well, I was going to ask if they could indicate in the chat whether they watched the video or not.
Okay.
Or we can just go ahead and watch the video.
I think we have time. I spent time interacting for my country. Okay, we have that. But this one, we need the audio. I have to make sure that the audio, I think yesterday the audio wasn't there.
That's correct.
Yes, I think I need to stop sharing. Let me stop sharing. I think it's an option I need to select. Yep, share computer sound. Check. Give me 1 second until.
While Alex is doing that,
yes.
I was thinking about the question we normally ask here in the United States, and I don't think it's quite as applicable, is it, in other parts of the world, where you know, here in the United States, we ask them to consider if everyone has clean water, and
go ahead and ask the question. I think
that, you know, that the fact that it's not available in other parts of the country, right, or the other parts of the world. So
okay. So Isaac says that he watched the video about play pump. Let's not watch the video. I like to do something else because they can watch the video at home. Yeah, it is. So the video, I'll just share it and then definitely watch it. It's about the gentleman that goes from London to South Africa, and he tries to solve people's water. The video was recorded in 2005. There is an update. There was an update in 2010, which wasn't all that encouraging. So yeah, several people have watched it. Let's not watch it again. Let's do something else. Let's go back to what we talked yesterday. I want to expand on that, on two things that we did yesterday.
Okay, Alex, before you move on, it was just, I'd like to make a couple of points in regard to the video,
okay.
That I think are important. You know, here is a man that took on being responsible for clean water in South Africa, so that's how it fits into the responsibility lesson. But also that part of the children were part of the solution, so that because someone is young, does not mean, in fact, we have a number of examples of where they are very much a part of the solution and have a contribution to make to society at large. That's it.
Okay, all right, yes. So let me go back to patients and the goals that we set yesterday. So going forward, something we forgot to talk about, going forward, we need to align our daily, monthly activities to make sure that we can achieve our goals. Because some of our goals are small. I wish I could share some, but if anybody has completed their goal sheet and it's okay to share with everybody else, please send me a message through chat. I know several of you did complete your goal sheet. I think that would be a good idea. Let me know if I can share your goal sheet and I'll pull up your online workbook. But our goals are something that we need to continuously look at them. Maybe not every day, but look at them and evaluate and see, are we getting there? Are we making progress or not? Are we making progress in the time that we have set them? And everything that we do from here on, all the lesson plans that we're doing is to support those goals, whether they're being a personal goal, whether they're the family goal, as far as what we are thinking of accomplishing going into the future, what legacy we want to leave. So we all, and as you will see, everything that we are working together is to achieve those goals. I want to go back to nobody's volunteering to share their goal sheet, which is okay. Wanted to go back in here because I know there were still probably questions and so forth. I want to go back. Sorry.
Isaac said that you can share his.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me pull up Isaac's. I'm not on the right. There we go. I have too many windows open that often gets me into trouble. Isaac, I have to find you. Yep. I wish I had done this a little earlier. I should have asked someone.
I think you had 2 S's in his name. He only has 1 S.
Ah. Nope, it's not. He has 2 A's.
One S and 2 A's.
Yep. Thank you. That doesn't help much either. All right, let me do something and then I'll come back. Or I don't want to take everybody's time. He might be as part of. I don't think he's part of here. All right, now let me go back and then we'll come back to his thing. So let's continue our conversation on the income, assets, and then so forth. So one of the things that we didn't talk about is which one, I think that maybe we did a little bit, which one of these assets can produce income for us, and liability. So this is going to be part of tomorrow's lesson plan, is about accountability and responsible borrowing. So that's why we do, the reason we have responsibility into the program and accountability is because these are the foundation of our borrowing system. I think borrowing system exists in many countries, but we have to understand what do we borrow for, what do we do to make sure that we don't over borrow for things that we don't necessarily need. One of the items that we put in here is liquid and non-liquid. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. What is a liquid asset and what is a non-liquid asset? So please in the chat, let's see if anybody knows what a liquid and what a non-liquid asset is. And I'll put it in here so we can identify it. I think it's very important to understand. So what does it mean to have a liquid asset and a non-liquid asset? All right, now search for. Thank you. That was much easier to find. All right. So while we're waiting for that, all right. So these are the things that Isaac has set up as his goals in here. To purchase a laptop for 500, I would say it's local currency. It does have a dollar sign. A fridge, a motor bicycle. So we have set up a plan of action. I will use part of my savings and try and cut my expenses. So that's great. To aid me undertaking the purpose of what he's doing is for his studying. So it's not just about purchasing a new asset, but it's purchasing something that we can actually use. So a few comments are coming in. Let's see, what else does he have in here? And what he's thinking of accomplishing as an individual who invests. This is what the legacy that he wants to leave in here. As an individual who invests in human capacity development by supporting them, especially brilliant but poor through education. A person who has led more souls to God. Those are all great goals to have, and we can try to achieve them. We need to work on them. So let's see, there are a couple of responses for liquid assets and non-liquid. So liquid assets are assets that can be easily converted into cash, exactly. Non-liquid assets are those structures that are not physical money, but brings in money, a building. Perfect. This is exactly what it is. So our spiritual and liquid and non-liquid mainly pertain to material stuff. So we're thinking about a car in here or real estate. So in order, if we own a building, if we own a house, it would be difficult. I mean, we can sell it, but it takes time for us to sell that and cash it in. However, if we have a savings account, that is liquid. So we'll put liquid in here. Maybe a car would be easy to sell. Maybe a piece of jewelry would be easier to sell. But as you can see, selling something like a real estate would take a lot more time. Retirement account. Let's see. Who can tell us whether a retirement account is liquid or non-liquid? Let's see what people's thoughts are. And let me see, so we got the expenses. And then while we're waiting for that, okay. And I think there was a question yesterday about life insurance. That's something that we can put in here too, for those that have life insurance. So a retirement account, at least the way it works in our society in US, and it depends on how it works in your country, a retirement account is liquid, but there's a but to it. I like that. I like that from Timothy, that he says there is a but. Yes, the way at least our retirement accounts work, you can take money out. That would be a immediate withdrawal, but there are consequences to it. So for example, most of the retirement accounts in the US, they are set up that if you pull money out of it, first of all, you would have to pay tax, and then also there is a penalty. There is some special circumstances, like for example, right now, during COVID-19, the government has allowed people to borrow money from their retirement account. They can pull it out without paying any penalty. And I believe if they put it back within 3 years, there is no penalty at all to it. And they don't have to pay, initially they will have to pay tax, but then they can recover that if they pay it back. So yeah, retirement account is kind of one of those two, and that it could be both a liquid and a non-liquid, and it really depends on how it is set up in your country. Savings accounts are, let's put another one, stocks. What about stocks? Are those liquid or non-liquid? So Felicia says the government in Ghana does not allow people to take money. It's really up to the different governments to change the rules to allow for different things happening. That's something that you really need to be on top of things. So a lot of people, one thing we have seen with retirement accounts, people are not really paying attention to it. They put money in there. And if we go forward with the program next week, we'll get more into the retirement accounts. That people put money in there, but they don't necessarily pay attention. Is it growing? Is it not growing? What is happening? Yeah, remember, there's a big difference between a savings account and a retirement account. Retirement account needs to grow exponentially. It needs to grow faster than a savings account. That's what needs to happen. So stocks is most often, I think that's one of the liquid ones too, that you can always sell. You may sell them at loss, but usually it is available to be sold very quickly. So let's get into any question about these. Now, before we move on, I know that filling out the information on your personal worksheets may not be so easy because of the internet problems. But again, we're really encouraging everyone to utilize the online worksheets, and not necessarily, if you don't have to, don't write the information that you're writing on a piece of paper at home. Paper gets lost. But this online worksheet, I think it would be there as long as Google is around. These worksheets are going to be around, and you can keep a copy of it on your computer as well. And hopefully you will come back to it in a few years and see where we started from. We know that this week was very condensed. Doing an activity and an assignment every day may not be easy because of other things that we have to do in life. So if we do decide to move forward next week, hopefully everyone can take some time this weekend to catch up. And we'll give maybe only a simple assignment for Monday, but everyone needs to catch up. Let's see, so a couple of comments in the chat. So you can mass money and are tempted to withdraw funds until you actually retire. I'm glad to see that retirement accounts work very much the same in everywhere. That is exactly why government has put restrictions on these retirement accounts. Again, yeah, the penalties and the taxes you might have to pay for early withdrawal is so you keep money in there. You don't take it out and go buy a new cell phone or buy a newer car or something like that. So there's a question: can investment accounts be used as retirement account? Yes, an investment account, depending on what it is. Again, retirement is really saving, developing the habit and capacities to save for the future and not touch it. Some people have developed that habit even without having a retirement account that has restrictions. Others may need to have that restriction in them. That because they cannot control their desires. That's one way. Ultimately, we hope that everyone develops that habit, that even when you have an investment, let's say you have a land or a office building or a apartment that you rent out, that you're drawing money from it, and they will continue on for yourself and then for your children, hopefully in the future. There's debate on savers borrowing against their savings, specifically in the pandemic. Hopefully it will be sorted. So, so is that liquid or not liquid? That's a question from Penny in Kampala. Let's see, that's a complex question. Anybody wants to answer that? Borrowing against their savings. One thing I can say is that this pandemic, I think it definitely qualifies as an emergency. It's something that nobody planned for. Nobody knew that it was coming. Uh, so I think I would say just in my mind, borrowing during this time, but only for life necessities. That's where we get into trouble. That often we think about, oh, we should borrow for a new TV just because there is a new TV out in the market, or the one that I have old and it's not working. One of my things, and my family always give me a hard time about it, is that I like to use everything until it actually dies and fix everything until it dies. Um, but that has not been in our society today. And I need to find it was a picture and something, actually it was in Farsi, I can't share it, but it showed a couple, a very old couple. And the question that was posed to them was that, how long have you been married and how? I think they said we've been married for 70 years. And the response is how you have been able to stay married for 70 years. And the gentleman said that because we come from a generation that when things broke, or when things break, we fix it, we don't throw it away. And that is so powerful to know that we have become a generation of just single use. We buy something, and as soon as it's broken, often it does not make sense to fix, and we just throw away. So coming back to this question here is, yes, we should have, that's part of what saving is for, to make sure that we have liquid assets for emergencies. When coronavirus started, I don't think anybody knew how long we would have to be in lockdown and how long we would have to stay at home. Another question, are we at liberty to use the worksheets for training others? If yes, how can we use them in facilitating others? That's a very good question. Yes, the worksheets are for you to use. You can share them with other people. You can, the way when you download it, you basically made a copy of it. The one that I'm sharing that you're using for this class, you can, it's on our server, but then the one you can download it and then create your own. Basically, you can create as many as you want and share it with other people. There's also, so let me go back to the facilitator workbook, and then we'll talk about next for tomorrow. All right, so if you go to the printable version, so let me just review this. There are printable versions of everything in English. There is the spiritual aspects that we did, the workbook that can be printed in, and then there's also a facilitator manual that describes every lesson plan in the basic level, very detailed. The advanced level does not have a facilitator manual for several reasons. One is that we don't do it that often, and then also it's really about activities that are done in the classroom. It's more of just presenting than doing activities. There are some activities in there that we do, so definitely. In the WhatsApp group, I actually will share some of the tools that we use in working with children and with others, but definitely. And if you need any help with organizing your own group, or even if you want us to do this same setup with you, but we would, whoever wants to set up as a group, we would ask you to co-facilitate with us, so you get trained into training other people. As much time, at least as I have, I'm more than happy to organize online classes. But then we know that once the COVID-19 ends, we should really be doing this in person. It is a lot more powerful when we do this education in person. I hope that answered the question. So lesson plan for tomorrow is, let me go back. It's about, we're gonna get deep into borrowing. So accountability. So there are a couple of exercises, assignments in the accountability. The first one is a continuation of what we did in responsibility. So here we identified some of the community challenges, some of the things that we see that need improvement in here. In accountability, we continued that with looking at our community to see what is there, what exists there, and what it is not, what's missing. So for example, for nutrition, we go to supermarkets, or something that we have here called farmers market. Farmers markets are farmers.
이게 그거가 가지고
Okay. So farmers market is where farmers come in and sell their products directly. They're all organic. They're also, that's what they do. Is there enough housing in your community, or is that a concern that needs to be fixed? Again, please don't pick on my spelling. Where do we go to buy our clothing? Whether something casual or something a little bit more elaborate. So you list out all of these things. Houses of worship, are there churches, mosques, synagogues, Baha'i temples, education, schools? So we list these to see what is in our community, and then hopefully we can come back and say, all right, our community is missing this thing. A lot of times when we work in schools, students like to have like a park, an extra park or skate park, somewhere where they can have safe environment. Community centers beside churches and houses of worship, that they can do different things, they can learn different things. And basically from that, so often we've said, all right, we need a new, I'm just putting this community park. So then we start to break it down. What do we need to make this thing happen? Who has the resources to make this happen? We need, and this is where we tap into our talents, our time, our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual powers to come together to bring what's missing in here. In classroom, when we work with the students, they actually draw the community on a piece of paper, draw the community that they envision being living in. What does this community look like? What does it have? It has train, it has movie theaters, it has cinemas, it has different things. So they can visualize what community they're thinking about. And that leads us to the conversation about borrowing and being responsible borrowers. So I'll do an example in here. So for example, we're trying to make an advancement, which would be purchasing a land. So we need to purchase a land in here. We'll put that in here. So in order to make a park, purchase a land, or for a house. So at advancement, purchasing the land is not the advancement itself. That's just a milestone for the community park. Even building a community park is not necessarily the end. It's not the purpose, it's the milestone. The advancement is to have a more unified community, maybe a safe place for children. Children to learn and to get education. So what do we need to borrow for this land? Obviously, we need to borrow money. That's one of the things that we need to do. So anytime we borrow money, usually the banks or the people that we borrow money from, they want to have something that's valuable from us to make sure that we're going to pay it back. So it could be, if people owns home, collateral can be partners personal home. Because if a bank is giving a group of people money to build a new community center, they want to make sure that they can get their money back, that there are going to be programs that will generate some revenue in here. The compensation is the interest that the bank will charge. So you can do several of these. There's place for two, or you can add more in here. So that's your assignment for tomorrow. Think about your community, again, what exists, what does not exist, and then also advancement. It could be for that particular thing that we're doing, or something that you do like to do personal. If you're thinking of starting a business, often when we start a business, we need to either have investors or borrow money. If you're thinking, I know yesterday someone was talking about purchasing a land or purchasing a house. Those are, so let's have these, and then we will dive into borrowing to see how the borrowing system works. And I've asked Emmanuel to give me some specific examples from Ghana. So we are working on actual interest rates and then so forth. So I want to stop here. We got 3 minutes. Any questions about the assignment or what you're doing tomorrow. And hopefully we will have I think so far everybody has agreed to continue next week, but then timing may be changed. So we'll see what happens in the WhatsApp. So I'll open it for questions. If not, we can wrap up today. And again, I'd like to ask our My Treasure staff to stay after the meeting. We're going to have a little consultation about if we were to move forward next week. All right, seems like there is no question. All right, thank you everyone for coming. Again, I know for some of you it's late, but thank you so much for coming. Despite the rain that's affecting the internet in Accra, we survived another session, and it is recorded and we will share it.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bless you.
Come and say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.